Good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Does that lighting look too bright? Hmm? Okay, well, good morning, good people, fellow humans. I had a discussion about this on Saturday with a couple friends, a couple interested people, and I had to explain, well, let me say it this way. I got to explain, I had the opportunity to explain the term humans that originally came from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where the Ferengi called the humans, but always trying to be too clever by half, I spelled it H-U-E, hue, M-O-N-D-S. In other words, hue is colorful, mons, short for almonds, colorful nuts. And that's what we is. That's how I choose to consider us. That's how I choose to believe God thinks of people as colorful nuts. He takes amusement in our folly, not displeasure, not frustration, except when it's intentional, but generally stumbling and bumbling our way through life. The sense of humor, humans, colorful nuts, out there trying to do our best, not knowing how, searching for the light switch on a darkened room, etc., etc. Okay, so today is Monday. That means it's the beginning of another week in our neuroscience-oriented approach to sick. This is week 4. We wrap it up this week and we start over next week. So it's a 4-week rotation, which, if you think about it, turns out good because that's 12 and a half rotations per year. Breaks it down pretty easy. You can start whenever you want, any day, any week you want, and it's going, as long as you're doing it for 4 weeks, you're going to get the whole thing. And then do it again and again and again. Rinse and repeat. Wash, rinse, and repeat. That's the approach. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Do it so that it becomes unconscious behavior. Do it to the point where something doesn't feel right. If you don't do it, you have this nagging sensation. What am I missing today? All righty then. So this is week 4, day 1. Day 1 of week 4. Good morning, what not a bevy. How are things in Fort Jacks? The modern technology. When I was just a youngin', it would be unthinkable. It would seem like magic to be able to be having this kind of communication with somebody on the other side of the USA in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay, blessed and beautiful and rainy. I got the flat tire last night on my way to a meeting. LOL. So you might, I guess the lesson learned, have tire patch kit, emergency, get that goop or whatever it's called. Reinforced inner tires. Right. Okay, week 4, day 1. Week 4 is, so this thing builds, boom, boom, boom. This program builds on each other. Had to leave it at the choice, at the flirch. Okay, had to leave it at the flirch. All right, so this is week 4, and our program, it's not just this way, it's this way. Builds on each previous week. So we started with overview and orientation, where we learned our goal for this course is to be able to answer 2 questions. Who am I and why do I behave the way I do from a neuroscience perspective? not from a philosophical, not from a spiritual, not a sociological, not meteorological, not that approach, from a just simply from a neuroscience approach. How does my brain work? Who am I in terms of my brain? Why do I behave the way I do? That's our goal. And the reason is, if you can answer those two questions, you can dial in who you need to be right now, thus improving your odds of success. Okay, that's our purpose. So week 1, overview orientation. 2, inside my skull-sized kingdom. Inside my skull-sized kingdom. That's a pretty big skull-sized kingdom. By comparative standards, inside my skull-sized kingdom, how does my brain work from a neuroscience perspective? Just very rudimentary, basic stuff, sub-basic. Neurons, neurotransmitters, and the reticular activating system, the RAS, just those 3 things. What do my neurons do? What are neurotransmitters? And my RAS, and how does that help me know who I am and be able to dial in who I need to be? Week 3, last week, outside my skull-sized kingdom. Because I need people to help me. I can't do it on my own. I need helpers. I need help. Can't do it on my own. So, what's next? Week 4. Week 4 is, now that I know how my brain works in a rudimentary way, now that I have people, know how to attract people to help me, now I have to go out and make things happen. Or for you, say it's like a metaphor. Now I've built my ship, I've got a crew for my ship, and we have shoved off, and the journey, the adventure is afoot. That's 2 letters, 1 word. It's afoot. It's not 2 words. It's not a foot. It's afoot. The game is afoot. The adventure has started. So now what I need to focus on is the adventure and not get distracted by problems like the crew, where are we going, this, that, the ship doesn't work, etc. And so we call this week leadership. It's not really leadership, it's really power. But power is one of those words that gets people, they think it has a negation. It doesn't. It's like hammer, it's like money. Power is value neutral. It just means getting other people to do what you want. In business, getting other people to do what you want is called management. In the military, it's called leadership. What do good leaders do? They get people to do what they want with successful results. What do good managers do? They get what they want people to do with successful results. But we can't call it management. We can't call it power, so we're going to call it leadership. How do I get people to do it? So this week, we look at the spectrum of leadership. Last week, it was the spectrum of how do you get people to do what you want. And it was positive and negative, right? From the negative side, manipulation, coercion, intimidation, etc. Positive side, motivation, compliments, cooperation, ultimately self-motivation. Same thing with power. There's the dark side and the good side. So you have on the dark side, crisis leadership. Everything is going wrong. How do you keep moving forward when everything is going wrong? And then you have the positive side, where it ultimately is everything is perfect. How do you keep people moving forward when everything is perfect? So we start this week with crisis leadership. Everything is going wrong. And our host for today's show is Nancy Kane, business school professor at Harvard, who has been very helpful to us over the years. Note to self, send a text to Nancy Kane. See how she's doing. It has now been, I don't know, 14 years, 13 years that we have been watching her video every week. I mean, every month. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, I'm just thinking about this email to Nancy Kane later today. So, crisis leader, everything's going wrong. And the two examples she uses are everything is going wrong is Lincoln, President Lincoln during the Civil War, Lincoln's presidency, and Ernest Shackleton's second to last voyage. I think it was the Endeavor in voyage. Maybe it wasn't that, but it was the one where he made a couple strategic mistakes and his ship sunk in the ice and the men were stuck on Antarctica. And then they sailed across some of the roughest waters in the world. And they did this and they did that. And they all got saved because of leadership lessons, crisis leadership. So every day is struggle. In fact, on his last journey, many of the crew in the ill-fated journey, many of the crew signed up for the next one. Said, we had so much fun last time, let's do it again. So crisis leadership, that is the TED Talk for today. Crisis leadership. And she gives Professor Kane, Dr. Kane gives 10 or 11, depending upon how you count them, little breadcrumbs of leadership. Like, the world is my classroom. Like, how do you keep moving forward on the shaky floorboards of doubt? Or have flexibility in how you're going to accomplish the mission. Okay, so very good talk by Professor Kane. That's how we start off. Tomorrow we go the opposite, pure leadership, and we have Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, most powerful guy in the world who could have whatever he wanted, but he was a Stoic philosopher, so he acted good the whole time. Then, so we got both ends, then we settle in the middle and we learn about Ignatius of Loyola. Not Ignatius of Antioch, Ignatius of Loyola. And who was, and we call that practical leadership. So that's a guy who started out on this end, everything was great, then everything went to hell, and he clawed his way back, had run-ins with the law, and he is our kind of guy. And what we learned from Ignatius of Loyola is if he could do everything he did, considering all of the circumstances, if he could do all of that, each of us can do something. We each can do something. What? I don't know. What? Okay, so let's see. Let me just talk for a second about weekend highlights. Well, actually, let me get the advice from an 80-year-old, which happens to be our memo for today. What's a meme? What? Not a bevy. What is a meme? Do you remember? What is a meme? A meme is what? Let's see if Wadabevi can come up with that. The simple way we describe a meme. How do we describe a meme? A meme, an idea that spreads from brain to brain. Ding, ding, ding. What do we have for Johnny? Right. An idea that spreads from brain to brain, not brain to brand, not brand to brain. That would be interesting if an idea could spread from brand to brain. Maybe it does. And on Zeta, it probably does. OMG. All right, so our memo for today, advice from an 80-year-old, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Also known as the law of parsimony. For extra credit, what not a bevy? What is the law of parsimony? What is another more common term that we use to describe that? Did I shave well today? Did I shave well today? How was my razor? How was my razor? Occam's razor, the law of parsimony. In other words, right. In other words, when you're trying to figure out which is correct, should I do A or should I? Give me the explanation for the existence of God. Well, there's this really complex one, and there's the simple one. Usually it's the simple one. The simple one is usually the correct, the better choice when you're trying to figure out what to do. The law of parsimony. Occam's razor. Keep it simple. Or as some people say, KISS. Keep it simple and stupid. No, that would be something else. Just keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. Or as President Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. Not it's the stupid economy. All righty then. So that was our advice from an 80-year-old. Keep it simple, stupid. Seth Godin. Seth has a great one today. New and old, big and small. And then he has a 4-quadrant grid, which I have attached to the worksheet. And the vertical axis is labeled new, old, new, old. And the horizontal axis is small, large. But it would be this way. Small, large. So if you're new and small, you're nimble, innovative, curious, market sensitive. If you're new and large, you're aggressive, hyped, committed. If you're old and small, because you're careful, resilient, frustrated, or accepting. Yeah, this is just the way it is. We got to watch out. If you're large and old, insulated, conservative, brittle. Right. Complex systems are also fragile. Organizations and brands can choose their quadrant. It's tempting to want the best of all 4, but it's going to take effort and focus. All of these terms are relative choices, not absolute judgments. Where does your offering fit in? Right. New and nimble, new and innovative, new and curious, market sensitive. Because you're small, you can be nimble, you can be innovative, curious, market sensitive. But like new and large, like let's say Uber, large, fast, aggressive, they wiped out competition. Very hyped, a lot of marketing involved. Very committed. We're going to change the world whether you want to or not. Right? Okay, so that is that. And we are at time. We're at time. Time, such a runic rhyme. Okay, so with that, we're going to say and cut, everyone. And